controversial subjects with the facts can be tense. But we are a sub-science here to make things make sense.
Hey,
Zelda.
Okay, no, do the.
I feel like what other noises does he make?
It's like hi, so cool.
They're pretty good. Yeah, good job.
Cool.
Not exactly. You feel like you can do Yoshi pretty well. Yeah, that's really good.
That's how I like talk dirty to Mitch. I go like, "You're fool." I'm like,
And I do the Link's voice, and you do Yoshi.
Does he ever say anything?
That's the amazing thing. He's a silent protagonist.
He's
never been voiced other than making those noises like like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're doing. Like even now in the past 2 games, Zelda's been really behind in that it's never done voice acting until Breath of the Wild. There's only been like noises that characters would make, but you always read the dialogue. Which I actually love. I think it's like special. You get to like, it's kind of like you get to read and imagine it. But in Breath of the Wild, they implemented voice acting, but every character has to talk to him as though he doesn't ever say anything, which is unique. No other video game, the protagonist will talk.
You know, I wish some days I was a
voice.
silent protagonist, but I'm a loud gay man.
Maybe that's why I identify with Link more, because I am like a silent protagonist in some ways.
Oh my god.
I really
Main
am.
character syndrome.
Okay, we are talking about Zelda on, Breath of the Wild, but Link Tears of the
He's gonna start
Tears of the
crying.
Kingdom. But just in general, we're gonna be talking about video games and the science behind them. And also like some really fascinating research and development into Breath of the Wild that I found. That's really fascinating about how video games are developed as like a science. And I thought that was really cool. But to start...
Wait, no. Oh, do you have an idea? I was going to ask you questions about it.
You can ask me questions, but I was just going to say to start, like, I am a huge Zelda fan. I grew up playing Zelda. Obviously, I played the original Legend of Zelda on Nintendo, but I wasn't, like, super into it at that age. I was too young.
What is that?
That's the first one on the
But
original
is it sideways
NES.
like Mario? Like
it's top down. Like,
whoa,
you know what I
horny.
mean? Yeah, top down, and you're basically exploring the world like from a. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Pokemon Energy.
Pokemon Energy, yeah, and like you're exploring.
Is it on
the
a
world, going
Game
into
Boy?
caves. It's on Nintendo.
Nintendo 64.
NES, just Nintendo Entertainment System.
Like
Their
the one
very
that was
first-
like with the like
the gray little box.
Wow.
Do you
I
even
didn't
know what I'm
know
talking
that.
about?
Yeah, the one where there's like the X. Oh, no, Greg, don't fuck up. The A and B
What,
button.
Xbox?
The A and B button are on the right. It's gray,
Yeah.
and on the left is just like a black plus symbol with up, down, left, right.
Yeah,
There was a Zelda for that.
yeah.
Oh wow! Because
That's
I
the
only
first
ever
one.
played Mario at other people's houses. Oh, because Zelda's a solo player thing.
So was Mario, but that's okay.
No, I would run sideways as with someone else.
Then you weren't playing the original Mario.
Oh well.
You might have been playing like the second one on Super NES.
Oh yeah, it was Super Nintendo.
Okay, yeah.
The one where you can be 2 people, and if you got too slow, you like die because like the screen's going to the right.
I'm not sure actually, but it's not important because we're not talking about Mario.
Well, I'm sure Nintendo and Mario and they're all linked. It's the same company, right?
They're not the same company.
Nintendo.
No, I'm kidding. I'm
What the
kidding. Yeah, no, they're 2 of the like biggest franchises
they're
ever.
linked. Like
Of course they are.
Nintendo made Mario, and then they made Zelda, and obviously people love both of those things. And that's like the pinnacle of video games, right?
Yeah, Mario is probably actually a way bigger franchise than Zelda. Despite Zelda,
Really?
Yeah, like think everyone knows Mario. Not everyone could say that's Link.
So Zelda's like the critically acclaimed kind of alt version of it all.
Maybe just Mario like was so successful. That's why I think they did a Mario movie first, because they're like everyone has a relationship to Mario.
Oh my god, are they gonna do a Zelda movie?
I'm scared. They might, but
then Link can't talk.
well, he could in a movie. They've done like a really bad one in the past, like
Really?
a cartoon one that everyone loathes, and it's like so embarrassing.
Oh no,
They did a really bad Mario Brothers in
Yeah.
the past too. But what was I going to say? The only way they could do it successfully is if it was done by Studio Ghibli. That's what I think.
Oh,
Which,
interesting.
interestingly, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, heavy references to Studio Ghibli. And it gives me hope that maybe they'll collab on a movie together.
That would be so smart.
Because so many of the themes, the music in Breath of the
Yeah.
Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is clearly inspired. Like even the art direction is very similar. A lot of the like actual things that happen, like Link in the new one, like his arm is like lost to some evil power, and that happens in Princess Mononoke. So there's like lots of different.
that would be really smart. I think that's a good idea.
Anyway, so like where do we begin with this? Like, what other questions?
I
do you
am like
have?
so not the person to ask. I have never. I mean, I've played a few times.
I've tried to force Greg many times to like play Ocarina of Time, which was the game that brought me into this Nintendo 64.
Oh,
that's the game that got me sold on Zelda.
No, the one on Wii I played a lot. You can become a wolf.
Oh, Twilight Princess.
Yeah, and it was great. It was actually really cool. But I am so bad at video games because I've never played them that like I actually get so frustrated and throw the controller and you're like, you just have to go up to that rock and like rub it or something so simple.
And I think you don't have the patience necessarily for puzzles, like because I'll be sitting there and you'll be like, tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Okay, then I'm going to talk about one of my studies has to do with how it makes you smarter.
Okay.
So this is in fact true. I do believe anecdotally about the two of us. So they had a study where they got people to play Super Mario Brothers and 64. So which one's that?
Like you would recognize it probably. It was like the first 3D
going
Mario.
sideways.
No,
3D.
on N64. N64 was the first 3D Zelda, was the first 3D Mario.
Whoa.
Like Mario 64 is what it was called.
Truly can't picture Mario ever going 3D except when he threw his hat in Galaxy.
I mean, Galaxy also is one of the best.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was really fun, but I don't remember this one.
You had to like
anyways.
jump into paintings and that would start the levels.
Oh god, I'm such a freaking loser. Okay, so they would play Super Mario Brothers N64 for 30 minutes a day for 2 months. And they found there was an increase in gray matter in the people who were playing N64 versus the people who weren't.
Okay.
In the areas associated with memory, strategic planning, and fine motor skills.
Okay.
So the fine motor skills is not what I relate to, but the strategic planning, to me, that's puzzle vibes and memory.
I think I actually do have pretty good fine motor skills.
Yeah, well, that's something that I think maybe because I paint.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I never
like you
feel like I
deal
don't
with-
have, but
I
I don't
see.
have strategic planning. I hate the concept of board games where you're supposed to like think about the next player's turn and shit. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm always just like, ooh, it's my turn. What do I do? And I'm impulsive. And I feel like video games do make people better and more patient around puzzles and memory. And like, I don't have that gift. And I bet if I played video games, I would more based on this study. They were like, obviously you can't say that video games make people smarter, but one thing about this study I thought was interesting, 30 minutes a day for 2 months. 30 minutes of video games a day to me seems like chef's kiss for your brain. Like the
Right,
issue,
you're not playing for 17 hours a day. Like,
and like I think when we're going to talk more and more about like video game addiction and stuff, like too much of anything is bad. So I think video games get a really bad rep because they are addictive and people get so sucked in that they lose. Essentially, they're not playing for half an hour a day. There's something about that this study is saying, and I'm like, that is really probably extremely healthy. Half an hour a day of using your brain in this like kinetic, interesting way, and then you're done. And this study made them have to only play for half an hour. I'm like, that is weirdly feels like a nice spot.
As a gamer, GAYMER, half an hour is actually like nothing.
Oh, I know. I
Like,
know
you would
it
not be able to do very much in half an hour.
But you still would like be exercising your brain. And I'm not saying that this is like what anyone would do, but the fact that this study found that it increased like strategic planning and stuff, I'm like, oh, that's like interesting.
Yeah.
And they were saying it was beneficial.
It's probably worth mentioning that not all games are created equal. And obviously I'm going to show my own bias here to the kinds of games I like. But when you even for me, as someone who plays Zelda a lot, like certain kinds of puzzles come up over and over. And I'm assuming once you're good at those, you're not really challenging your brain anymore, which is, I do like Zelda because they are trying to always reinvent their games, reinvent their puzzles. But if you're just like, and no shame to just like shooter games or like first person player games where you're just like doing the same thing over and over, but like Fortnite, I enjoy playing Fortnite, but you're really just doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over. Of course you're getting better at that skill, but at a certain point you're no longer challenging your brain.
Interesting. But and the video games,
like when you first start Fortnite, it's actually so hard, and you definitely are building neurons in your brain because you're like, how do I coordinate my hands with all these things?
Totally,
on screen?
bro. But like the studies on video games where they talk about how it helps like with aging brains and like can actually really help people who are essentially like in their 60s and 70s to like stimulate their brain in new ways. The games are always these specific puzzle games. They're not getting like 70-year-olds to like shoot a bunch of people and like just because like they're kind of under the assumption that that's like what you're saying. It's like a little bit like the games that they're using to study people that are video games are like constantly changing. They're about puzzles, and even I don't know, N64 for 30 minutes a day for people who maybe haven't played video games would probably constantly be challenging.
That's true. And Mario is great because every level is basically a different puzzle.
Exactly, yeah.
And half an hour, you probably like can really only do one little level and
so
finish
video
it.
games aren't like science says video games are not just like bad, which sometimes it feels like people.
Yeah, they get painted as a negative thing. What I'm gonna say, because there's probably people listening to this podcast who either don't like video games or are not into Zelda, and like it's totally okay if you're not into some things, but this thing, no, I'm kidding. I just think I want to describe, because I've tried so long to get you into Zelda, and I had to come to the realization, like, not everything is for everyone. I know you liked what you did play.
I did.
But I just want to describe, and I like to get people to try it because there is sort of this vision of what a video game is. And to me, Zelda, like, it's like an enlightened form of a video game. I know that sounds pretentious, but it's like, it's this combination of not only just like puzzle and exploration, but music and soundtrack and like themes. And yes, like the story, every time they release a new one, I hope the stories can get deeper and deeper. Like their video games, like they're not like these critically acclaimed narratives necessarily. They're pretty simple.
Is it you're saving Zelda from it? Isn't that kind of like saving Peach from Bowser?
Yeah, it's
saving Zelda from Ganondorf.
Not all of them, but that's generally the premise. Like something has happened with Zelda and you're trying to like either save her or like save Hyrule or save the world, or that's the premise. And along the way you like have different enemies or different storylines and different people you're helping. But
people do feel this way about it. Like everyone I know has had like a spiritual epiphany to Zelda who's played it.
Yeah, that's why I want to say, like, if you've never given it a chance, and Breath of the Wild is a very different Zelda game than every Zelda game before, but I think it's beautiful and amazing, and I think a lot of people would love it.
It got, like, based on whether it was the pandemic or not, what I was reading said that it got the most people into Zelda Breath of the Wild because what some people like you who argue that Zelda is like the best thing ever think Breath of the Wild changed everything, and they think it was maybe essentially more open to more people for whatever reason. I don't know. The gameplay was more... Why
well, the whole... Okay, so I can even start talking about the research that went into it. So basically every game before Breath of the Wild was linear, wasn't open world. So that just meant like you're basically following a storyline the whole time. You have to go to this dungeon and get this thing in order to go to the next dungeon and get this thing in order to go to the next place. Like it's a very specific order. Yes, you run out into a field, but it's just so you can go over there to complete the next bit of the task. And until you unlock that, nothing else will unlock in the game for you. There'll be barriers, like you need a certain weapon that can get you into this dungeon, and so you can never get in that dungeon until you've gone to this one.
Yeah, that's stressful.
The only difference is the very, very first Legend of Zelda on Nintendo NES was open world. It was just like this top scroller where you could kind of explore. It felt huge for the time. And that was like the original intention, was like, it's about just exploring. It's about like going out there, not knowing necessarily, there's no direction, just go and find things. And so Breath of the Wild was kind of bringing back the thesis of what Zelda was supposed to be, but the limitations have always been 3D worlds can't be open world. Like on N64, to design a world where you can do anything in any order, it's like they can't have the capacity for that.
Because there's not enough like terabytes.
Yeah, like they're just not enough. They not big enough. They didn't have the technology to like really make it possible, to make it big enough, to make it fall. Like you can't just... When you have an open world, you have to account for every single variety of thing that can happen.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And you have to have a system that can also like literally understand physics and understand you. I mean, I can't even speak.
So
to, like,
that's
the
why
amount
every
of
time
things
you
that,
turn it on, the Nintendo Switch like literally hums.
Oh,
and
mine
is
is
gonna explode.
no. That is something is wrong with mine. Like
Okay.
the fan on. If anyone knows how to fix this, the fan on my Switch, especially since Tears of the Kingdom, which is obviously pushing it to its limit, it's just like.
Yeah.
And I'm always like turning the volume up so loud on my TV so it drowns it out. But whenever I pause my game, I'm like, is that still
I'm like,
going?
that box is about to explode, my friend.
But it's kind of always done that, so I think I just got a faulty unit. Or a faulty fan or something.
Whoa, don't Nintendo sponsor us. Give them a new one.
Well, no, yeah, you should. You should give me a new one. So where was I going with this? So Breath of the Wild, their whole goal as developers was, how do we create a world that people can explore any way they want? Like there is obviously a story and a path, but we don't want people to feel like they have to just go here, then go here, then go here.
Oh God, that stresses me out too.
On top of it being one of the biggest maps ever. Like the other day I sat
Bigger than the Earth.
Bigger than the Earth. No, it's interesting because to test the development, they put Link in a version of Kyoto. Like they used Google Maps to recreate Kyoto so they could run around with Link and feel like, how big do we want this world to be? How long will it take to get to this landmark? What does that feel like? How many things do we need?
What did they decide?
I don't know that I have like a specific answer to that, but it just helped them develop like what the feeling was. How many like activities along the way do you need?
Kyoto, not Tokyo?
Yeah, I think they're based in Kyoto. I think.
Okay, sorry, side note. Is Tokyo and Kyoto the same letters in different order?
Oh, I think so.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Is that
I think
on
maybe
purpose?
I'd heard that before, but I don't know why.
Okay, continue. Kyoto is beautiful. That's where it's based. Why didn't we, when we went to Kyoto, why didn't we go to Zelda headquarters?
I can't say for sure if that's where it's based, but that's what I remember. I just
It's
kind of
giving
heard.
Kyoto energy. Like Kyoto is like this beautiful, lush city that like it's Zelda's. It's giving that.
If there are Zelda headquarters, I don't think it's probably like corporate. I don't think it's like a Zelda world you can show up in. You know
but
what
I
mean?
still think the corporate Zelda headquarters, if we went in, you would like drop to your knees and cry.
No, I would. But so that was the challenge. How do we have a story? How do we have things that people have to do eventually?
Yeah.
But also make it so they don't have to do any of it.
I know. I don't know this person, but I listened to the podcast The Read, one of the best podcasts ever made. Everyone should listen to it. And they always talk about Zelda, and it makes me love Zelda through them. And Crystal, one of the hosts, I think she plays every day, like 2 hours a day. She's obsessed, and she's like refusing to beat it, but she still plays it 2 hours every day. She's like,
the amount of things is almost unfathomable.
Yeah.
It came
She's
out
still-
6 years ago.
Yeah.
And people to this day are finding and like doing things that no one has seen before in the game and posting it, and everyone's like, no one knew this could happen.
Whoa.
Like that's how deeply they like designed this game. And Tears of the Kingdom has taken it like to the nth level.
so
of that.
you beat Breath of the Wild, quote unquote, but you could keep playing it.
Yeah, like I sort of regretted beating it because it's so open world that there's so many things I could have kept doing.
And you would have kept doing them if you hadn't, quote unquote,
Yeah, like
beat
once
it.
you beat it, you sort of I felt like, oh, when I'm like done the game, like it feels like the reason to do everything else is so you get more items and power and
it's
whatever.
smart what Crystal did. It kept her going.
About a year after, or maybe a year and a half after I beat it, I finally went back and started playing again. But for a long time, I was like, why would I go and do all these extra things when I like beat the game? But that's the interesting thing about Breath of the Wild is when you start the game, there's like a little like sort of, I won't call it.
I've started it.
You're stuck at the beginning because they're teaching you how to do the controls.
To jump off of a cliff.
You can't leave a certain area until you've like gained all your abilities. Then the world's open.
Yeah.
From that point, you can go straight to the end of the game, like immediately.
Whoa.
Like if you're willing to fight with only 3 hearts and no special skills, you can go straight to the final battle. And if you're good enough, you could beat the game. So that was the premise is like, you choose. Do you want to go beat these other places and get power to help you with the final boss?
Probably.
Yeah. And of course, like everyone wants to see the story. But when they started developing like this world, it was so huge. So they're like, how do we get people to go to the places we need them to, but allow them to like know where to go, but feel the freedom. So
that also stresses me out.
their first like plan was we're going to add these huge towers called Sheikah Towers, and you can see them almost anywhere in the map, like because they're so far away, and you'll know I need to get there because it like imprints on your map so you can then see the map.
Okay.
Like it fills in your
Oh
map.
yeah, I remember that. The map gets filled in.
Yeah. So they started with that, and then they tested people, and they realized, okay, everyone's taking the exact same path. This is not what we want. Like everyone's going from
Too many Sheikah Towers.
or it's just like everyone felt like even though it's open world, like it's
There's
keeping
a
me on
Sheikah
a
Tower.
track.
I'm
There's a
going to the
track.
Sheikah
I
Tower.
go there. So this design flopped, and they have these like research papers where they show heat maps. You can see like 80% of people followed this path to this path.
Okay.
to this path.
Also, you need to get the job as the tester of Zelda.
Yeah.
Anyways, like,
How do you do that? Well, I mean, I only
know.
speak English, so that's not helpful. Like
Well,
all the
I'm-
original games are in Japanese and stuff.
Wow.
Even this presentation was only ever shown in Japanese, and no one ever got a hold of it except some screenshots
Y'all
and
need
stuff.
to get on that
because it was kind of like in
Duolingo,
Paranormal.
my friend.
Okay. After that, they're like, we got to change it up. So there's got to be Sheikah Towers, but we've got to add more points of interest. We've got to realize, like, on the way to the Sheikah Towers, something over here has got to distract
that
you.
heat map needs to be spread out.
Yeah, so there's got to be shrines, and there's got to be enemy bases, and there's got to be stables, and all of these places need to have a reason that you'd actually want to go there.
So
you're going to get good items,
Yeah.
you're going to get good power, you're going to have a reason to go there and explore.
Shrines is Breath of the Wild. I remember the shrines.
Yeah, so shrines all offer you warp points. Anyway.
And they're puzzles that are hard for people like me who are quote unquote stupid.
Yeah, but I feel stupid in them all the time. The amount of times I sit there.
No,
like,
but you
and
watch me
refuse-
play and you're like, you're actually stupid.
No, that's not true. That's what you
Yes.
think. And I try to tell you, like, no, this took me this long.
No, and then I'm like, tell me what to do because I'm impatient, and then I give up.
It's because you're impatient, but I know. And I hate. Every now and then I might look up something, but very rarely I'm like, I need to just, like, figure this out. Or
No,
come
but
back
you'd be
to it.
like, Greg, that rock is glowing. Go up to it. And I'd be like, it's not glowing. You'd be like, it's glowing. Like, you would get annoyed because I'm like, oh, is that? You're like, it's a video game. If something's glowing, go up to it.
Yeah, but I understand that sometimes happens to me too, where I'm in a place and I'm not realizing like that
But I could tell you were frustrated with how dumb and how little skill I had. You'd be like, okay, we're just starting, and you're in an empty room with one glowing rock, and I'm like, I don't know what to do, and I'm running it. Like, I'm just saying, there are people like me out there who it's just really hard. Continue.
Okay, fair.
And everything you're saying is amazing to me, but I'm like, it's like
no,
so
because
crazy.
I want you to know and everyone to know who might give Breath of the Wild a chance is like you're not supposed to feel smart until you crack the code. It's like a puzzle. Like you feeling dumb and being like, tell me what to do. It's like that. I have those same moments where I give up, but then when you figure it out, you feel such euphoria.
Yeah,
because you're like, it's
but
like
I
solving.
think that, yeah, you're right. I'm just like,
you get in your head because
thought.
It's easier for
I'm
me
like,
because
I want you to just tell me in this moment for this puzzle, please, because I'm gonna leave.
But it won't just be the puzzles. You'll say, you have to tell me where I'm going now. And I'm like, the point of this game is that you can go anywhere.
Well, sometimes I'd be like, okay, I just like horseback rode for truly like 3 to 4 minutes across a thing. And then you're like, wait, are you telling me I have to horseback ride back? Because like that's annoying to me. It's like, oh, and like I'm impatient. Like it's a video game. Like the fact that I have to like, you know what I mean? Move physically in a game because I made a mistake is hard for me because I'm like, I have to go back on a horse, like galloping
That's
for 3 minutes.
just what you have to like start to be like, it's the experience, not the destination.
Yes, no, I know. And that's what I need to learn about life.
Yeah. That's what this game did that was revolutionary to the entire gaming industry.
Gotcha.
That because it broke the linearity, it allows people to just like, that's why so many people just play it without the intention to beat it. They're like, I just want to like live in this world.
And like horseback
experience
ride and
it.
gallop through a
Go around,
trail.
find things that no one else has found.
Yeah.
So they realized once they put all these secondary places in, they need them to be visible. So some of them glow. Sometimes the fire puts up smoke. So from a distance, you know there's something over there important. There's bad guys and they have these huge structures wherever you're going to go. Stables
Yeah, there was
have-
a lot of you doing that to me. Oh, well,
what's that
Greg,
smoke
in the
over there?
distance, there seems to be smoke. And I'm like, what?
Okay.
Oh.
So then they realize players are now suddenly way too overwhelmed. There's way too many things to do. They're going to the shrine.
It's giving
or they're
me
going
all
to the
the time.
tower.
Yeah.
So they came up with something called the triangle rule.
Okay.
They started to design the landscape all in triangles. So you have like mountains, hills, everything. And what this allowed was for not only is it a decision point, you can climb over a mountain, you can go around, but when everything's built that way, you can only see so much until you get further, right? So if there's mountains and hills surrounding you,
They only come into
suddenly
it.
you only seeing part of the map.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, I'm going to go over here to this shrine because I see one over there instead of seeing like 15 in the distance. But by the time you go there, now maybe
see
you're at the
another
top
one.
of a hill and you see another area. And they started realizing
That's
like
fun.
this would create a pattern of like endless discovery and curiosity where instead of seeing it all at once, everything's hidden except for one little area. And triangles are like that perfect form of like you can go around, you can go over, and when you're at the top or around, suddenly there's another area developed.
So fun.
Yeah, no, I thought that's really clever. And then once they started redoing these heat maps, they realized
Then people
now
spread out.
everyone's going a different direction. Yes, and then the success was they still make their way to these landmarks we need them to.
But
like,
they've done so much other stuff separately.
yeah, and they've all done it in different paths. So they've like seen one thing here. Now they can see 7 more things. Some people go here, some people go here, and like along the way they're
Did that
like really
click when you
exploring.
read about it after playing it? You're like, I remember the
Oh, totally. I
triangle
still do
vibe.
that. Well, I mean, I never thought about it as triangles.
Do you think it's triangle energy for Tears of the Kingdom?
Well, Tears of the Kingdom is basically almost 3 times bigger. It's the same map, which I was really worried
It's
about.
like Disney World, California.
Well,
versus
there's
Disney
Sky
World, Florida.
and Underworld now. So
Underworld or underwater?
Underworld, like underground and deep, deep, deep caves. Like really scary. It's like the scariest place I've ever been in a video game.
Hell. It's giving hell.
Yeah, it is hell vibes. Everything's kind of red and dark and scary.
That's where the gay Ganondorf's going to be. Hell.
Like literally, that's where he's going to be. So, I mean, what Tears of the Kingdom has done, the only way to describe it is they've just like somehow created a physics engine that can run in this same world and allow you to almost create endless things.
Because you can take a hammer and connect it to a tree.
So, I mean, there are still some limitations, but
isn't that like
you
the
can
big
fuse your
fusing
items,
thing,
but you can
or-
also build. Basically, people are like building ships, and there's like all these devices that like you can use to power them and fly them in certain ways or shoot objects, and it's just like such a cool design that you can kind of like build not anything, but it's like a really fun element.
So have you built a ship?
No, I'm like really not that good yet.
Have you fused anything?
Yeah. I've been like building like really crappy wagons and stuff, but then I see people online like building like the most epic battle. Like I just sometimes don't understand how Nintendo made this work to a degree where people could like fully develop.
Yeah.
They'll have like all these weapons.
No
and
wonder-
I don't even know how to describe it.
Well,
I see it and I'm like, how did somebody
I
make
feel
that?
like if you make a big battleship, your Nintendo Switch is going to explode. From
Yeah,
like,
mine maybe
you
can't handle it.
Maybe you should stick with the shitty wagons for now until you get a new one. But that's really cool. Even that concept, I'm like, yeah, for sure someone's done that before, but they obviously haven't.
There has been building in like Fortnite. You can build stuff, but it's limited.
Yeah, it's not like
It's
fusing.
a
to create something
pattern
new.
of how you can do it. Where this feels, it's just so cool. It's so creative. It really is like a sandbox.
So
game.
out of 10, you're like, it's giving 9 to 10 out of 10.
Right now, yeah, and I'm really early on because I'm so scared to beat it too fast because of like not
Yeah.
that I still spent like 2 years beating Breath of the Wild, but I still wished I had done more.
Well,
So I'm
isn't
trying
it
to
like
do like every little thing right now.
critically acclaimed?
Yeah, no,
Like, isn't
it's-
everyone just like, it's the best again? Like, what?
It's one of the most amazing things. It reminds me of like it gives me the Studio Ghibli vibes in that way where you're like they spent so much time in this and like every time they release a game, it's just like one of the best, most groundbreaking games ever. Almost every single time
That's
a new Zelda
crazy.
comes out
That's like,
for just like 30
Yeah.
years. You know what I mean?
because when I think of my other podcast, Can I Speak to the Manager, which we're bringing back, subscribe, Can I Speak to the Manager podcast, that is really hard to do. Like, we're constantly looking at people trying to reinvent themselves, and of course people fail. It's like the inevitability of entertainment industry. It's why it's kind of fun to follow, because it's schadenfreude. It's like Nintendo failing would be sad, but it's a little satisfying in that weird dark way where you're like, you're rich, you're a
Right.
corporation
Yeah.
that's trying to make artful things. Like, of course you're gonna have highs and lows, and it's like it feels like Zelda's been a high for them, minus the
Almost
movie.
always, yeah.
Almost always, and that's so hard.
Yeah, to do over and over and over. And it's not just that the games are good, it's that they literally define like a seismic shift in gaming almost every time. Not everyone, but like the first 3D Ocarina of Time, while you'd go back and be like, it's janky now, it like invented so
The
many
thing
concepts.
that everything, yeah.
Yeah, like the idea of locking onto an enemy or a character with this specific button to like position
Even-
your camera was like no game had ever done that before.
Whoa, that's so.
And
all
now every
gaming
game
is.
does that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also like even the Wii, because that was like university time, so I was like forced to play it a lot because it's like I live alone now and everyone's playing Wii, and I guess that's what I'm doing. But like it was so weird, like the controllers.
Yeah, and I mean, like some people hated that, right? Like it was not that. I mean, the Wii sold a lot. The Wii was a hugely successful system.
Oh yeah, it felt like a really successful thing
yeah,
at the
because
time.
And what I like about Nintendo is that they're like, we're not competing with Xbox and PlayStation.
Yeah,
They're like,
totally.
we are gonna capture the market in a different
They're
way.
like, you want to play tennis?
Yeah, like they really
Swing
captured this
your
sort of like
arm.
casual gamer
Yeah.
market. Whereas Xbox and PlayStation often go for like best graphics, really intense gameplay, and there's no shade against that. But I think Nintendo, I'm British.
Me thanks.
Nintendo to me is much more creative.
And that is interesting to also keep like quote unquote winning and making the best games while trying to be different is also even harder. You know
and,
what I mean?
and to be like, we're gonna do it in a way that we've never done
Yeah.
before.
But
It's really cool.
Even this freaking Switch, like remember when we went to that Nintendo event when the Switch was first coming out.
Yeah.
And it was like,
I got to play Breath of the Wild as a preview there.
yeah,
Before it came
I
out.
know you pre-came and cried. But like when they were like, okay, slide the controller out of the side of the thing, I remember being like, oh, well, this is gonna fail, because I was like, this is like fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like it felt janky, and then I was like, oh, and I took it off, and they were like, okay, now you have to put this little band thing on. And I was like, you're asking me to do that? I was like, it just was like not giving to me Japanese design. Like it felt like clanky. But then now I'm like, well, eat my words. Every day I'm ripping those things off, putting them on my wrist, and like doing Just Dance.
Yeah, and it's like one of the most successful gaming systems.
And then when you were like playing it on the airplane, I was like, that is really smart.
yeah, they're just really smart.
Yeah, and it
That
felt
you can take
weird.
like that you can take with you. Like, yes, it's not as powerful as a PlayStation or an Xbox.
Yeah, but you can bring
it anywhere you go.
And that is smart for branding, because even now when I see people with it on a plane, I'm like, maybe I should get into a game for a plane.
True,
Because like
something to
that's an
do.
interesting time to play
Yeah.
something, because that's when I'm like, I'm bored.
Yeah.
And I'm also like about to die in a plane. Like it's like I'm scared of flying. Like that's a good distraction. But I'm just like, I just remember doubting Nintendo and like leaving
With
that
that.
event and being like, it's gonna fail. And then now I'm like, I'm such an
They
idiot.
could still fail. Like the Wii U was a flop. And some people love that system. It's the only Nintendo system I didn't
Don't
own.
even know what that is.
It came out because the Wii was such a success. But I honestly think the name, people were like, oh, is it just like an updated version
That's
of the Wii?
what it sounds like.
But it's a fully different system. So I think they just like, it was really bad marketing. It like flopped as a system. I mean, the GameCube was a pretty big flop of a system.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Like
GameCube?
in terms of like sales, like it was not successful.
Because that's another pinnacle era where every day after school I'd be like, I guess I'm playing Tony Hawk on GameCube. Like the shunt. Like it was like because of my age, I was always like I know those controllers. So
Yeah.
I'm like Star Wars shooting.
Yeah.
That was a flop. Weird, because like that was so much of my forced
I
childhood.
loved GameCube, but I think when you see graphs of like what sold, like it didn't do.
And
as
it
well.
was the Xbox like Halo era, so it's like maybe just also everyone else was. Oh my god, everyone had like in the affluent area where I grew up and didn't have any video games. It was truly like I go to someone's house, they'd be like, "Do you want to play GameCube, PlayStation, or Xbox?"
That's crazy.
Like you know what I mean? It's like that is crazy. And I think at the time, I was probably like GameCube because I'm gay and scared, but most people were playing Halo, and most people were going to the Xbox at that time, and it was really scary for me, and I was really bad.
Those are scary games, but they're really good, and I don't want to make it sound like those like systems don't also.
Halo
have
was
amazing games.
really fun,
and
it didn't have kill people, you kill aliens, right? And I also liked that.
It's not
Like
quite
when I
as,
was like absolutely obliterating other humans in games, I was like, I actually am too sensitive for this and I can't play this. Whereas Halo, you like caught it was like a little slimy.
Didn't you
gross
say you
things.
had some research on violence in video games?
Oh yeah, okay.
Like maybe that fits into this.
So I think what science has now led people to think is that when these horrible shooting things happen, like some people try to blame video games, and it's almost become a like right-wing talking point, which I think is really interesting because it doesn't sound, I don't know, it sounds like a more like liberal ideology to blame video games, but I think in some ways people are like, maybe it's a thing right-wing people are doing to take away from the fact that there needs to be gun control, because like
to find something else to blame.
Yes, because the science does not find that it makes people more violent, and the way that they study it though is really hard to like, that's such a hard thing to study. And so one example is like they try to think about like priming, like essentially like, could it be priming people to be more violent? This is a really weird study, but they would give kids the ability to play video games that involved like cars and trains. And then they'd give other kids a video game that involved like cats and pets. And then they'd do these like kind of quick memory brain tests about like trains and cars and about pets and cats, and assume the people who were playing a video game
pets and cats and pets and cats and cats.
And assume the people playing the video games about those themes would be better.
Okay.
And they found no correlation with them being better. And in fact, the people who were like playing the pets and cats game were actually better at like identifying cars and trains and the opposite. Like it was like, they were like, this is so not a thing. And then they just like looked at aggression with these like really, again, these these are hard studies, like psychological, sociological surveys on aggression post playing games with realistic deaths versus post playing games where, so for example, realistic death, they actually like use technology where like, yeah, you shot someone, the blood exploded and they fall. And I'm like, I can actually picture that. It is horrifying. Yeah. Then the other one, there were deaths, but the people would go like, bleep, 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 bleep,
right,
just
like cartoony,
disappear, like it pixelated into nothing, which I'm like, oh, I've also seen that.
Yeah.
And they found no difference on the aggression surveys post. Which I'm like, that's not saying like
right,
cut
it's not
and
so
dry.
clear, but it's like at least a metric to go by.
And all of their attempts to try and find some sort of like even indication that video games were creating violence, they couldn't. And then there was a meta-analysis that also found they don't relate to violence. So again, that doesn't mean that these studies aren't flawed and that there aren't like an obvious sort of fear when you're looking at your kid like obliterate a human with blood. Like that's scary. But then the idea of like a mass shooting and then people going to video games as an issue is very dated. It's like giving Columbine, and it's like, okay, that is like a really fucked up sentence. It's giving Columbine, but it's interesting because it's like, oh, if there's a mass shooting in America, it's like you need gun reform, and I think sometimes it can be used as a talking point to distract.
Yeah, it's no different than like lots of times different kinds of music are blamed for like the youth troubles or kids, whether it's shootings or like other things. Like there's always trying to find like what's a cultural reference point that's like parents don't like that can be blamed, whether that's like punk music or emo or video games or like a lot of times people get like it is like those people get blamed or those games get blamed. And
but I think
there's like clearly, and that's not to say they couldn't play any role, but obviously that's not the main role.
Obviously it's like let your kids play Zelda, like it clearly expands your brain, and as we said earlier, like video games can make people have like truly strategic planning, which I don't have, and like specific memory like advantages. But I think that it is also important to know that it doesn't mean it's not having an impact. Same with like music, same with anything. Like I don't know, it is kind of crazy to obliterate people with like a machine gun. Like it is. I just think what the point that I take away from it is it's like if there is a mass shooting, that is not a video game issue. Like especially in a place like America where we're like the rest of the world's just looking at it like not laughing, but truly at this point being like it is so obvious to everyone except for the people who seem to be like in charge of laws. The reason why these things are happening, it is not video games. But I do think there's room for more research because I'm like, Zelda is a great example. Like that's not what you're doing in Zelda.
No, I mean you are still like you do still end up fighting characters and stuff.
Yeah,
but obviously it's like cartoonized. You're not like seeing guts and blood everywhere.
And maybe the concern with video games is more their addictive nature. Like I don't know. It just feels like
there's different levels
just say
of
that they're like all good, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that. I don't think most people who love video games think that they're all good.
Yeah.
Like most reasonable people can acknowledge, like most things, you can spend way too much time on video games. They can be addictive. They're physically inactive. Like there's reasons why they're not all healthy, but they're just like anything, right?
There's something about Zelda though that truly it's like it gives it like I have heard so many positive things.
Yeah,
like,
no,
it's
a great
like,
beacon of light in the gaming world. I think because it still fulfills, like you still get that thrill of like having to beat a boss or like a bad guy. But it's like it's so much deeper than that. Like that's not the part that people are like playing Zelda for.
Yeah, and
I mean some might.
And
but.
I don't like I'm a weird human at my age as someone who's never had a video game system or never had ever felt an addictive I have a repulsion to video games because I'm so bad at them. I mean, it's like I kind of don't even understand.
Yeah, and I think that is part of like what people are trying to mend is because on the one hand, of course it's fine to be a concerned parent, but you have a lot of people who are detached from the gaming world completely. So a lot of it's just out of fear. Yeah. I didn't grow up with that. I'm normal. And so my kids are going to get messed up. I think like parents who have a relationship to games can understand the line a little more clearly.
Honestly, at this point with social media, it's like almost like video games are like bad. Like it's almost like they're more like reading a novel versus like.
Well, like a Zelda to me is. Yeah. It really is.
Like if I was like, if I had a kid right now and he was like, I'm addicted to Zelda, I'd be like, well, at least you're not addicted to like TikTok. Like, you know what I mean?
I
like,
would
I'd be like,
way rather my kid be
yeah,
playing
okay,
Zelda.
go play that narrative, really confusing thing that I can't even do. I'm gonna go over here and scroll about some dumb person who's like telling me like the best place to get pizza in Toronto.
The only time I ever did judge you when you were playing Zelda is when I would be like, you know, like, because I'd get you to like play Ocarina of Time, and you'd be like, I don't get it. I was like 11 when this came out. But I had an older sibling who I'd mostly watch. So when I started finally
but I
playing
do think that's why I'm like, video games are not this scary. Like when I have kids, I want them to play video games, even though I didn't. Whereas my parents were so disconnected. There is a part of me that I really appreciate. Like I have, like I love nature and being outside, and I think a part of that is attributed to the fact that like my video game was truly like a hike because I didn't have any other options. Yeah. Which I like, but it's like I still think that like I could have used. There could be a balance. I could have had a like Nintendo like GameCube. Maybe.
I know this is sad, and I think I've said it on the pod before, but like actually playing Zelda sometimes makes me appreciate nature more. Like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, that's like that's what I mean. It's not.
There's something about like running and being in these like vistas and like appreciating nature in the game, and then you feel when you're in the real world, you're like, this is like Zelda when I'm in a forest.
I read about the guy who designed. What's his name?
Miyamoto?
Yeah, he did. The whole reason he made Zelda was based on his love of gardening.
Oh, that's so
and
cute.
nature, and it's like I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah, there's so many elements.
I'm like just gonna go garden.
Literally like garden in Zelda.
Literally, like I'm outside just gardening our garden, and you're inside gardening in Zelda.
Yeah, and like
and
making
similar
food
vibes.
and like cooking and stuff.
Yeah, you're so funny about gardening in real life. No, I'm always like, oh yeah, you could put this in. You're like, well, no. I'm gonna do it. Like I feel like you're.
It's a whole different thing to do. A real
I know,
garden.
but I'm like, no, but it's not. It's not different than the gardening in Zelda. It's not.
Where
probably.
I get to sit and not physically move.
Okay.
There's a difference.
Wait, oh, you're like physical.
The gardening is hard in real life. It can be.
I think that you're worried it's not gonna grow or something.
No. What?
Oh, wait. Then what's stopping you?
Because it's manual labor. And by the way, I still do like garden sometimes. Like I'll like rake. I know that's
no, you. But I'm like,
and like I have like my bean plants I'll do, and that's it.
But even those, I'm like, I'm just like.
I just bought them yesterday.
No, I thought that it was that you were afraid it wasn't gonna work.
No.
Oh, it's literally just because it's like
a lot of work.
Okay. Sorry, I thought it was kind of like. I'm like, if you water and they're in sun, like it will grow. But
I know.
Okay.
I'm not stupid.
No, I just like thought in my head you had the skill of gardening in Zelda more. You're like, I actually know if I put
No.
this here, like,
No. I just said like, I mean, it's fair to say I don't have a gardening skill. You used to work at a nursery. Like I feel like you have a little more confidence and experience of how to set up a garden. But I still like I'm not like not gardening because I'm like, it's gonna die. Like I'm willing to try. It's a lot of work.
Oh, it's the okay.
The other day you were like, it's gonna take me about 8 to 10 hours to do this garden.
But that's
stuff.
to do everything. That was to
I'm like,
to
that's
put mulch,
a lot
to
of
move flower.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But that's gonna be over the course of like 4 different evenings.
Yeah. Going back to gaming, one thing I was gonna say is it's crazy, and I always forget the stat. I don't have it exactly, but it's like the gaming industry is like bigger than all the other entertainment industries combined.
Yeah,
for sure. You think of movies and how big they are. It's like gaming is way bigger.
Yeah, and you can't torrent them, right?
Some people like the Tears of the Kingdom did leak and people were playing it on PC before it came out. So like there is sometimes ways that people get their hands on things.
Someone learned how to code.
For the most part, it's like much harder to just like download a game and play it.
That's what I mean.
For the average person.
I think that a lot of movies, TV shows, things like that, it's
easy to just like there's a whole system set up to like watch and pirate things.
And they're just so expansive and big and like rarer. Like when I think about like truly streaming services, I'm like, we got rid of Netflix because I'm just like, there's so much shit here that it's like I can't. It's not curated in the same way that
to have a game that you love that comes out and then just
and
focus on that one choice to play. Yeah. I mean, I don't have much else to say other than like, give it a try if you haven't. Breath of the Wild is a great entry point for a lot of people just because it's new. It's totally different. Everyone experienced it in the same way.
That's Switch.
You don't have to like have any video game experience. Our friend just started playing it and immediately I was like, oh, you're doing great. Like it's just about exploring. But obviously there are some older ones. Like know that it broke the format. It's actually a really different Zelda game.
I think Breath of the Wild, from what I read, is a great start for people.
Oh, totally.
Was, and because of the pandemic, it was a huge.
Yeah, and in
for
3 days, Tears of the Kingdom outsold Breath of the Wild. because there's so many people who became in love with it.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, like that
Wow.
now are like, I need to play this other one. And Breath of the Wild got so much hype as like the best game ever.
Yeah.
And Tears of the Kingdom I'm still so early, but like it's crazy. I was a little lukewarm at first because it's kind of set up at the beginning.
But that's
pretty
so
similar. I know, but I was worried. And even the first like 3 hours, I was like, it's still
But that
so
is like
similar.
that is so you.
But it is so
Yeah.
far so good. As I kind of like finally got into the narrative, I'm just like having so much fun. I had to accept that it's taking place in
Have
the
you
same world.
seen Sexy Ganondorf yet?
Only in a little flashback. I have never
Was
met
he
him
that
yet.
hot?
Yeah, I mean, like hot in like kind of a weird way to say he's hot, but like he's jacked, but he is like a creature.
Okay. Well,
Like,
I
he
mean,
doesn't look human.
we both wanted to bang the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, so we're not above
It's closer
that.
to the Beast than it is to a human. Like
Than
he's
to Gaston.
green,
Would you rather bang Link or Ganondorf?
like Link.
Oh, okay. Well, so he still has
Link's
his twink
twink.
face.
Yeah, and Ganondorf
No, he's
is
twink.
like daddy. No, Link's twink.
Really?
He's a twink. Well, I mean, like
Isn't
he's
he
fit, but
jacked?
he's not like jacked. He's fit, but he's not like jacked.
I thought he's like Legolas. Oh, that is Link.
Legolas is a twink.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I really need to Google Link topless after this.
The game starts that way.
Whoa.
He's just in underwear at the beginning.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Like a Calvin Klein ad?
Yeah. Both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you start just as like Link in underwear.
Okay, so I'm gonna play when we get home. I'm kidding. And
yeah, give it
it's
a
like
try.
everyone give Breath of the Wild a chance, and if you're a gay horny freak, you can also do Tears of the Kingdom, which it starts with him in his Calvin Klein ad.
Give it a try. I just want everyone to try it and play it. And if you're ever looking for something that's kind of like a mixture of meditative, but also challenging and also fun and explorative. I mean, it was perfect for pandemic, and I know it's like we're in a different world. We're going into summer, but it's just such a nice thing. It's like more like reading a book than playing a video game, I think. And it feels like you're really exploring this world. And think of how much a book can impact you after reading it for whatever 20 hours, and you can play this game for hundreds. And think of how, or thousands even, how deep you can connect with something that you can explore for that long. That's all.
You should get a tattoo.
That's been my only ever consideration is something from Zelda, but then I was like, that's a little like cringy to me. I'm not judging anyone
Grimes
else.
has one.
I know, it's just like I don't really want tattoos, and I'm worried if my only tattoo is a Zelda tattoo.
But it could be like an obscure. It doesn't have to
it
be
would
like
be a triangle.
Okay, so like maybe don't do that one.
Why?
Well,
because the
that's
Triforce.
I know. I'm saying.
I see. Like find
like,
something.
What's something in it that
more
is more
obscure.
obscure that you could just like it would just be a beautiful tattoo. And
But that I need to feel like some reason to. I don't want to just. I don't really want a tattoo, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to do an episode on tattoos.
Okay. Well, hopefully that was interesting to everyone listening. Hopefully you'll go give Zelda a chance. If you had to, I'd say try Ocarina of Time, which is the original N64. It's also like considered one of the best games of all time. Though obviously the graphics are super outdated. I remember at the time being like, this is the most realistic thing I've ever seen in my life. But I think if you just want to jump into one, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom will provide you with something that you otherwise maybe wouldn't have. Even if you're not a gamer, I think you'll love it. And even if you're not into like, it has this sort of like medieval feel, like it's not, you know what I mean? Like, yes, you ride on a horse and you carry like shields and swords. But I know some people are like turned off by that aesthetic. It's not too much like that.
Okay.
Okay.
You're welcome, Nintendo. We'll see you next week.
Peace.